here to introduce our second speaker of the night. This is the speaker that got the call up very late last night to fill in for our speaker who has the flu. So please be very kind to her. She has been so amazing to step in at the last minute. Her name is Mozzie. Well, this is her Instagram name. Please go and follow her. She's amazing. She's going to be speaking about how mosquitoes spread disease. So bring her out. Everyone. Woo!
Hi everybody, my name is Veronique and I'm a medical entomologist. That means I study insects that are of medical importance. So apologies to everyone who came to want to learn about the Kink 101. I wanted to do that too because, like, fun fact, I actually just signed up to come to my very first nerd night in the audience to sort out if I want to present here once, and seems like the experience is I am on stage now. So I have bought my emotional support beer and I try to kind of get you like sort of interested in mosquito research. So let's see if we can all pull this off together, I think. Thank you, you're very kind. Anyways, we're going to talk about borreliosa research in Victoria, or like the media likes to call it, the concerning flesh-eating borreliosa that even made it into Bateman's Bay, New South Wales, that is spreading across the Melbourne suburbs and that forces Victorian health departments to issue grim warnings to make sure that no one gets this flesh-eating ulcer. I want to take a little bit more of a light-hearted approach to talk to you through the sort of research that happened in the last 2 decades to get us sort of to the understanding that we have right now. So I'm calling this from possum poo to mosquito flues because that's literally what it is. And fun fact, if you type that prompt into ChatGPT and ask it to make a picture out of it, you get a ginormous, one-handed, one-winged mosquito, Sherlock, that is looking at poo, and I could not resist to use this as a title slide. Like, how could I not? Anyways, so what is this disease and why are we worried about this? So I have presented this sort of work to a lot of different audiences, and I've learned the hard way that the only people that want to see a skin infection are medical people. So if you're interested in what that disease looks like, do your own research and don't blame me if you don't like it. Because it is a skin infection and it's caused by a bacterium, and that it's very closely related to the bacterium that causes tuberculosis in humans. And it produces a toxin under the skin that is dissolving skin tissue. So this is where all this flesh-eating stuff in the media headlines are coming from. So you can imagine that if not treated early and well with antibiotics, it causes big open wounds. So it is a neglected tropical disease. That's how it's classified by the WHO. But we're having the most cases in Australia that are reported worldwide. They're actually coming from Victoria. And we are not just the most cases, we're actually having rising numbers each year. So we report consistently over 300 cases from year to year, and consistently more cases each year than the past year. And we're not just concerned about the rising cases, we're also concerned about those hotspots that are kind of expanding across the bay. So when I started being part of this research about 7 years ago, everything sort of happened down at the Mornington and Bellarine peninsulas. And now it's kind of made its way across the bay, it's found in the city of Geelong, and it's even creeped its way into metropolitan Melbourne. And it's in the inner suburbs now. So we're talking Coburg, Essendon, Brunswick West, probably where we all go home after this. So it's really something that's hitting home, and it has made my sort of way to work, my commute to work, a lot quicker, I have to say. And it's a bit of a head scratcher why we have so many cases each year, because as we all sit up here in like our coats and scarves, I think we can all agree that Melbourne is neither neglected nor is it like tropical. So it was a very sort of head scratcher for research for a while why we have so many cases compared to the rest of the world. And that was how we built the Beating Borrelia in Victoria team. So this is just a subset of it. It's a big collaborative research program that is built from people like microbiologists, epidemiologists, computeral science, people, wildlife ecologists, entomologists, and clinicians, whatever. It was a big team. Lots of people joined, lots of people left, depending on where the research was going at the time. I just picked this because I'm in it. So that is just a very, like a small subset of the team. The only people I want to point out is Tim Stenier from the Doherty Institute, Professor Tim Stenier, who's leading this whole team. And he's also the director of the WHO working group on this disease. And Paul Johnson, the white-haired man, he's not retired, but he was the director of the Austin for a very long time. And these two people have really pushed that research ahead a lot and are the reason why we know so much that we're knowing now. All right, what did that team do? So we really started with detective work because this is a notifiable disease. So if you have an infectious disease, you need to have the pathogen somewhere, right? So we really started just poking around to work out where is the pathogen. So when there was a case reported, the team went out and collected as many sort of environmental samples as they could find. That's water, soil, leaf litter, whatever they could find. And here I want to say that I'm just going to give you like the highlight package of about 20 years of research. So there are lots of rabbit holes and sidearms that, you know, if you buy me enough drinks, I will talk you through all of them. But each and every single step has like a whole rat tail of what I could talk about forever. So I'm just going to give you like the little highlights. Anyways, the thing that came back the most positive and sort of screamed at people saying, hello, I'm full of this bacterium, is possum poo. And it's not just any possum, it is the common ringtail possum that we're probably all very familiar with. So, you know, when we go home, you probably all see them sort of, you know, using the power lines as their little freeway. So we have them everywhere. And they are shedding this bacterium into the environment in their excreta. They're also a host of the disease, so they're getting ulcers themselves. So they're suffering from the disease as much as humans do. Again, whole other story about brush tails. They're also a little bit implicated in this. They have a different diet, lifestyle, body temperature, Could talk for this for a whole night as well. So let's just take it as face value. We're looking at ringtail possums. All right, so we had our first culprit. So Professor Tim Stenier and his team jumped onto postie bikes down at the Mornington Peninsula to start a whole possum excreta survey. So that was basically, you know, jumping on the bike, going a couple of meters, pick up possum poo, put it in a tube, put a GPS pin down, put it in your bag, go on, do the same thing 100, 1,000 times, take them all into the lab, screen them and see what comes back, because we really wanted to see if there is like sort of a spatial signal there. Do we just have positive possum poo everywhere and we kind of need to work out why we have human cases just in, you know, a couple of locations? Is it sort of spatially clustered somewhere? Do they just overlap with human cases, etc.? If you do urban ecology like this, I felt really seen in Jacinta's talk where she said, you know, residents sort of wander out and be like, what you doing? We all have stories like this. So does Tim Stenier. Like, he loves to tell the story where he like came up with his postie bike and then a resident kind of came out and said like, oi, where's my mail though? I'm waiting for something. And he's like, oh, actually, I'm not a postie. I'm like a professor and I'm collecting possum poo for this research. And he's just like looked down on him and looked up on him and we're like, it's a job, I suppose, and wandered off. So some people want to know about what the hell we're doing. Some people just want their mail. Anyway, so they went out and did that. And what they found is, so here we're looking at the Mornington Peninsula. Everyone who's down there at the beach knows exactly sort of what that shape looks like. And every sort of circle that we have here is where these gentlemen picked up and bagged and sent off some of the possum poo. And everything that's purple is where we had this bacterium in the poo. And if the darker the purple gets, the more bacterium was in the particular sample. And we can see there's certainly a spatial signal here. It's not all purple, is it? So, and we see that all these purple bits actually clustering in a couple of different locations. And then everything that we have here in blue are human cases. And they found that these areas overlap. So where we have clustering and positive possum poo, we also have clusters of human cases. And that was the very big first breakthrough of this project that really linked possums, or their poo, to human cases. So that was one first big thing. The second big thing that came from this result was now we have a predictor of human case risk. So now we were able to do these surveys, and where we find clusters of positive possum poo, we were able to inform residents, we were able to inform GPs to look out for any sort of skin irritation that doesn't go away that should be tested for this skin infection. So these were then rolled out in Geelong, as well as here in Essendon, and they were done for a couple of years down at the peninsula. So if you do see in the media that there is like a health warning about like increased risk of this, that is kind of driven by human cases, but it's also driven by people on postie bikes picking up possum poo. So now you know that. You're welcome. Anyways, that was a big breakthrough, but it still doesn't really tell us how humans actually get infected. Because even though we all know that there are so many possums around, we hardly ever interact with them directly. And yes, we do interact with their poo, but I need to say that this infection, that bacterium, needs to reach a certain skin layer deep in your skin. So just sort of doing some gardening, kneeing in some possum poo and then have like a superficial scratch won't actually start an infection. So even though we interact with those things in the environment, it is not really quite sure how we actually get infected. And that's another part of where it's more like detective work, because as I said before, this is a notifiable disease, and if you do have a Borrelia ulcer, there will be a team of epidemiologists from the health department contacting you and asking you a couple of questions to work out where were you most likely to be infected, and some other questions to kind of understand how this transmission cycles worked. And lots of people kind of reported that it was kind of starting as a mosquito bite and it just wouldn't kind of go away. It wasn't painful, so they kind of forgot about it, and then all of a sudden it grew and they were concerned and started seeing a GP and then got diagnosed. And then there was this other study, that study here, that mapped all of the lesions that were found on people onto a body. So that's not a poor person that had like hundreds of lesions. Every spot here is a person on a different patient that was all mapped onto a sort of mannequin. And if it gets dark red, that is where most people get their lesions. So it's like lower legs, everything below your legs, sort of elbows, and that just happens to be places where mosquitoes bite you as well. So it was kind of starting to point towards at least biting insects. And a little fun fact is that if you go to a fancy medical conference about this, you will get in your goodie bag socks that have this printed on it. So we are all just nerds, even if we like wear suits and go to medical conferences, and I can now not go anywhere present this work without wearing them, even though they do not fit any outfit. I mean, look at these colours. But, I bear my burden. All right, so this has then triggered another big survey. We like to do surveys in this work. This time, we're trapping insects. It's a bit more glamorous than possum poo, but not by much. So we're here again at the Mornington Peninsula. Across several years, thousands and thousands of insects were trapped, ID'd and screened for the bacterium. Over several years, it was a big effort. And the takeaway here is, out of all of these insects, all of these years, we have two main players that come up and be the most abundant insect species, and they happen to be mosquitoes. It's in grey, Aedes nodoscriptus, or the Australian backyard mosquito, and Culex molestus. Both of these are backyard mosquitoes, and all of you have been bitten by them multiple times, cursed at them, scratched your legs, all of that. These are these guys. They breed in our gardens. They're very common. But if you have a red outline around, your grey or blue bit, that means that you got the bacterium. So, not just got Aedes nodoscriptus sampled across a couple of different years, turned out to be in the top 2 of the most abundant insect trapped. They're also the only one that always came back for this bacterium to be positive. And on top of that, if they then overlaid this map that I showed you earlier between possums and human cases, those mosquito positives fall right into that as well. So now all of them overlap. So these guys, and it just happened that I basically did my whole PhD on this species. So that's where I got involved, at least a bit more. I was involved before, but this is where I sort of really got involved in this research because I know a lot about this species. And so I got to go out, knock at lots of people's doors down at the Mornington Peninsula, work out where they breed these mosquitoes, and talk to lots of people. And this is where I got to collect my own urban ecology stories. For example, if you go out with the high visitors beating Borrolii in Victoria, more than one person thinks that you're part of a women's fighting team that goes out and beats the Borroliis, which they thought was the other team. It happens more than once, and I was quite surprised. So yeah, I also misled, I think, a couple of master students that wanted to come out with me because I was doing mosquito field work, and when they worked out where we were going, they was like, why did I bring my Cupra? We're just in people's backyards. So there should be a different name for sort of urban field work, I think, but that's a different story. All right, before I touch on to the research that I'm doing real quick because I will run out of time, to sum the story up, Borrolii ulcer is a zoonosis. We're quite confident now after this bit of research that we've done, which means it is an animal disease that jumps over to humans. We have a high disease burden in possums, which means that the environment is full of the pathogen as well as lots of possums have it. And then mosquitoes bridge that gap to humans, which are spillover hosts that kind of just get the infection if there's lots of it in possums. We're quite unsure at this point if mosquitoes bring it directly from feeding on infected possums and then feed on humans, and or if they pick it up from the environment and bring it back to humans that way. That's basically what I'm working on my day job at the moment. So, from this, because it's really hard to control possums because there are a protected species here in Australia, the recommendation at the moment is that Borrolii ulcer intervention programs should focus on mosquito bite prevention because that's quite easy to enforce, and mosquito control that can be run by councils, but they can also be run by residents directly. All right, some research that I've done is to support some of those control measures by doing some basic ecological research on the mosquito species. So here, this is Tom, who's run this project with me down at the Mornington Peninsula. A terrible place to work, obviously. I have to say, though, as nice as it looks, it has ruined sort of the holiday vibe of the place for me. For a very long time, I got very nervous merging onto the Peninsula Link. Because even though I was sort of going to the beach, I kind of felt like I need to knock at people's doors. I mean, I always get nervous because people just drive like shit in this country, but... Sorry, I'm German, I need to put that in here somewhere. Learn how to drive, Jesus. But it's more work-related than that. Anyway, so I worked out in this study that this mosquito species that seems to spread this pathogen that gives people skin infections moves about 10 times further than other mosquitoes that spread diseases like the dengue fever mosquito. And that can make it quite hard if you want to control them localized. If we have these clusters that I just spoke about before, when you just want to do it there, because it kind of affects the results of a control study or control intervention if they're just going to go to your neighbour's garden or fly across a Coles car park or go to a different suburb. So they go quite far. And then I run 2 mosquito control interventions hands-on myself with all of these results in mind. The dispersal, the far dispersal that they're doing, as well as all of the breeding site surveillance that I've done before. And done a small mosquito control using a trap that overcomes some of those challenges in the outer suburbs of Melbourne, which was quite successful. That then got rolled out last year as a big randomised control trial in the inner west, so that was sort of Brunswick West, Coburg, etc. So I might have knocked at your doors to control mosquitoes there, and the results look quite promising. We have probably not just reduced the number of mosquitoes, but also the number of Borrolii ulcer cases in the areas that we've treated. So that's out as a preprint at the moment, and hopefully going to be up and peer reviewed as a proper paper soon. So watch that space if you're interested. With that, I would just like to thank my group, the Pest and Environmental Adaptation Research Group at the university that's run by Ari Hoffman, everyone in the Beating Borrelia in Victoria team. And before I let you go, some shameless sort of self-advertising. I'm running a little Instagram behind-the-scenes mosquito account. So if you're interested in mosquito facts that you never asked to know, I will be the person delivering them to you. And if you're interested, then maybe have a look. Thank you very much.
Give it up for Mozzie. Definitely go follow her Instagram. It is amazing. I think I'm going to start the questions. What's your favourite fact about mosquitoes? You said you have so many.
Oh, Jesus.
Sorry to put you on the spot. You can have your emotional support BR with you.
Well, I've already had... Okay, I hold it.
You can hold it.
I think it's more... The fact is more that I've realised that I'm so nerded out on mosquitoes that I forget that people don't know as much as I think they do. Because lots of people don't know that mosquitoes like breed in water, and I had lots of people be like, oh, these wormy bits in my pots are mosquitoes. I didn't know what they were. So I think that's like my biggest sort of aha moment, especially since I started sort of like my Instagram, that I just kind of assume people know things just because I've worked on this for like 10 years and I just assume that everyone does know that, which is not true.
Just like the annoying thing that bites you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? Ooh, we see some questions up the back there.
What's the correlation with the affluent areas?
Can you yell that? Sorry.
What's the correlation with rich areas?
Ooh, what's the correlation with rich areas? Is it because they have pools?
That is a good question, and I've kind of scraped from the script where I usually say like, well, if the white rich country gets an infectious disease, it's not that neglected all of a sudden. Usually this is more like a poor country disease which affects heaps of areas in Western Africa. And when I say we have the most cases reported, it's more like that is information bias as much as we are actually reporting a lot of cases. Because if you don't have funding to do any research and get out and get all of these cases reported in other countries, the rich place where it's a notifiable disease will have the most cases. So there is certainly a correlation, but we are hoping that we can maybe at least foster, getting the research funding, because now, oh my God, the tourism is affected at the Mornington Peninsula. We better give them some money to sort this out, to find some things that other places can use as well.
All right, I saw heaps of hands go up right in the front here.
Thanks, great talk.
Thank you.
And I thought you were talking about the super island was really important, like you said, this talk, we're great environment is trading for a lot of massive cosmos around the world. And I've got from Montreal, most of the time, and there's possibly in the garden. I'm getting bitten by both ants and mosquitoes, and I think I've got my other really fine ants. Is that recorded?
From ants? Can we get it from ants?
So probably not. But all of these things are still I can't say it with real, 100% confidence. But ant bites are very superficial. As much as they hurt a lot, they're not going to the skin layer that it needs to. And that's kind of why we looked at mostly mosquitoes and also sandflies at the very start, because they take such a chunk out of you. But it seems to really the proboscis, this mosquito mouth part that actually pierces your skin, that is what reaches that skin layer. So it will very likely not be an ant. But you might have been, one of the rare cases, who knows. And sorry you had that.
Yes, at the back there.
I have a water tank in my backyard with no particular purpose. It's just getting rainwater off the roof and creating a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Should I empty that water tank?
Was it a water tank you have?
Yeah.
I missed the start of that. So a water tank that's getting some rainwater off the roof. Should you get rid of it?
Well, there are ways of securing your water tank with mosquito netting or mesh on top, and you should really look into that, because mosquitoes breed really, really well in water tanks. But But also, if you have overflowing gutters, that also breeds mosquitoes. So everything that holds a little bit of water will breed mosquitoes. If you have a water tank, make sure it's mosquito safe, and there are ways of doing that.
Can we put something in the water tank to protect us and not the mosquitoes?
Yes, you can. So there are sort of growth regulators out there. It's called pyriproxyfen. Sorry, I needed to spell this out. Probably no one can remember this at the end of the night. But it's not really a pesticide. It's a growth regulator that sort of stops mosquitoes to go from the immature larvae stage in water to emerge as mosquitoes. And these are safe for everyone to... They're safe for pets, they're safe for humans, and they're a good way to treat anything that you can't tip out or get rid of. So yeah.
Yep. More questions. We'll go one over here and then one up here.
Is that safe to put in bird baths?
Is it safe to put in bird baths?
That is safe to put in bird baths.
Maybe it could be like a 2 birds, 1 stone situation with Jacinta's noisy miners.
Yes, but also just tip your bird baths out. If you do it like once a week, you're fine. It's just, everything that mosquitoes hatch and then it takes them about like a week or 2 to emerge. So if you just tip it out, that's fine. You can have bird baths, even though like I do walk around Melbourne like a weirdo, and I literally look at every person's bird bath at their front lawn, and I have been chased away. So it's different if you wear a high vis where people think you're in a like fighting club. They don't chase you away. If you're just in normal clothes, they're kind of just like fucking move on.
What are the signs we should look for in our bird baths?
The signs that you should look for.
Of like eggs or larvae?
Yeah, look, I wouldn't really recommend unless you're really like nerdy and want to see if something grows. Everything that sort of wiggles will probably be a mosquito larvae. But you don't really need to look for it. You're just going to tip it out and refill it. Yeah. And your bird's got to rather like fresh water anyway, so sort of refresh the water for the birds and kill mosquitoes at the same time. It's like, wow, time efficient.
It's a win-win. We had a question up the back there. I can't remember. Yeah.
It was a question about like mosquitoes. Is there any truth behind the stories that mosquitoes prefer a certain type of blood or can smell different?
Great question.
Like that?
Do mosquitoes prefer a certain type of blood? Are more people more susceptible to mosquito bites?
So yes and no. It seems like that. So as a scientist, I need to say there's no robust evidence that suggests that blood type has anything to do with how attractive you are to mosquitoes. There's a good study that came out last year that has shown that it has more to do with like skin derivatives that produce odor. And they seem to be genetically programmed. So they did like a study where they had sort of participants give them sort of skin samples. Sounds terrible. They had like sort of stockings that collected the skin sample. Anyway, over a couple of years, and they stayed more attractive to mosquitoes consistently over those years. And they had more of those skin derivatives than the other participants that were less attracactive. So that kind of rules out diet and alcohol consumption, because they didn't have any other regulations about what or not to consume. Again, this was done on one particular species though, so we're not quite sure if that's true for every mosquito, but it seems to come just down to what your skin smells like in the end to a mosquito.
My mum would be ready to fight you on that. She swears that her blood attracts the mosquitoes, but I can just tell her she's stinky.
Yeah, that's very good. I hear this a lot, and I tell people that.
Is there one last question in the audience? Yes, a very keen hand there.
Speaking as a hypochondriac who's apparently very stinky and attracted to mosquitoes, how do I not freak out about the borreliose?
How do you not freak out about getting diseases from mosquitoes? Because I guess it's not...
I mean, it is difficult. Wearing mosquito repellent, I'd say, try to not get bitten. And I feel like, I speak to people a lot here in Victoria, and I feel like we've been a bit spoiled because we didn't have a lot of sort of, mosquito-borne diseases down here. If you go to Queensland, it rains and people like run out and clean out their yard because they had dengue up there. So they're like, they know how to get rid of mosquito breeding sites. They wear repellent, there's no discussion, the kids get sprayed down, there's no like, but is that good for me? Like, and there's always, now we have Japanese encephalitis, we have Ross River popping up, we have borreliosa. So I would advocate for, make sure your house doesn't breed mosquitoes, walk around, tip up your bird baths, etc., and wear repellent. like actual repellent, because all the candles and coils do a little bit, but they're not really. If you're really attractive to mosquitoes, they will come if you light a coil or not. And probably see a GP if you have anything that doesn't go away quickly. Yeah.
Well, with that, go follow Mozzie Nick on Instagram, and please throw your biggest